Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But the following will be discussed in detail in the course of our show tonight. We will discuss, first of all, the top brass of the Pakistan Army that has said that sanctuaries and liberty of action available to TTP and other groups is one of the major reasons of impacting the security of Pakistan. This was stated in one of the statements by the ISPR. Also, the statement comes after the 258th Corps Commanders Conference that was presided over by the Chief of the Army Staff, General Syed Munir. It was held in the General Headquarters in Rawalpindi. We are seeing the effect of terrorist organizations such as the TTP that have infiltrated from Afghanistan into Pakistan territories. And now, whether it be the government or our forces, both have had a similar reaction as to what needs to be done and what is the methodology moving forward. The fact remains that TTP havens on our western border remain quite active despite whatever Zabiullah Mujahid Saab has been saying. The fact, the reality of things is quite different. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the grain deal between Russia and Ukraine that was signed last year with Turkey, that was the guarantor of this deal. Well, definitely Russia has suspended this deal. What Russia is saying is that this deal did not come through for Russia because all the Russian interests did not come through despite the agreements made as per this grain deal. And this is why they are halting this deal. Turkey and other countries say that this deal is has not completely been stopped by Russia, but that there is still a chance that it might be revived. Russia says the only way it can be revived is when Russian interests are also kept in mind. This is going to be our second story. Then we are going to talk about Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where a senior official from the University of Kashmir is among 3 employees, ladies and gentlemen, who have been sacked, terminated from the Jammu and Kashmir administration, invoking a controversial law, that is Article 311. This is a continuation of what has been doing, whether it be one way by inflicting barbarities on the people in the Indian Hill Valley, whether it be denying the basic rights to the people of the valley, or whether it be by terminating people in the Indian Hill Valley. The fact remains that there is coercion from the Indian forces, from the Indian government, directly and indirectly on the people in the Indian Hill Valley, all because they want to change the demography of the country, all because they want to not allow the people of the Indian Hill Valley to go forward as far as their right to self-determination is concerned. This is going to be our third story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns terrorism from our western borders that is infiltrating into Pakistan. We've seen that in Balochistan. We've seen the resolute response of our armed forces as well as our government as well. More in the following report.
Pakistan has witnessed a sharp spike in terrorism across the country, which is perpetrated by the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and its splinter groups. Terror activities in the country have soared by 79% during the first half of 2023, a stats report released by independent think tank Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies showed. Pakistan has deplored the convenience and freedom with which militants have been launching attacks in Pakistan from Afghanistan and has been urging Afghan rulers to take action. Islamabad has repeatedly raised concerns over the use of Afghan soils by militants for cross-border terrorism. Defense Minister Khwaja Asif had strongly rebuked Afghanistan for disregarding vital obligations made in the Doha peace agreement, specifically its commitment to prevent the use of Afghan soil for terrorist activities. The top brass of the Pakistan Army has said that sanctuaries and liberty of action available to terrorists to proscribe TTP and other groups is one of the major reasons impacting the security of Pakistan. Amid Islamabad's call for Afghanistan to rein in militants responsible for escalating militancy within Pakistan, United States has also asked the Afghan Taliban to prevent their country from becoming a safe haven for terrorist attacks. Irrespective of Afghanistan's stance, Pakistan stands resolute in uprooting terrorism from its soil.
We'll discuss more on this issue. We've been joined by Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan. He's a former president of the NDU and a senior analyst. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. So, first of all, let me refer to what the Chief of the Army Staff said, as well as what has been happening from our western border. The terror activities, as far as the Institute for Conflict and Security Studies report is concerned, have soared by 79% during the first half of 2023. In your point of view, what are the factors that are impacting Pakistan's security?
Okay, Rahman Rahim. There are multiple factors, both external as well as internal, that are impacting not only the national security but also the national interests of Pakistan. And what we have seen, in the last few weeks and even before, is, direct threats emanating to the national security of, I think, at one time to four countries of the region. Mainly, it is, to Pakistan from the TTP, from the BLA, the BLP, the Al Qaeda, and the ISIS, and the nexus among all these three, and a number of others, in the form of missing persons, but who are actually working against the national security interests of Pakistan from countries which are bordering Pakistan. Then, of course, Al Qaeda and ISIS is a direct threat to Iran also. Uh, and it is a threat, there is a threat to China from the ETIM and the ETIM nexus with other terrorists. And needless to say that there is this threat to the US national security from Al Qaeda and ISIS. So it is a very serious, international threat which is emanating from Afghanistan. And therefore, in my view, I think the response has to be a cooperative response from all these four countries in various degrees and various shades. Intelligence sharing is one such aspect which I think all the four countries should consider, and their interest coincides on that, despite some differences among them, particularly between the U.S. and China and the U.S. and Iran. It is here, that their interests converge, and therefore they should work together. And as far as Pakistan is concerned,
a coordinated response that needs to come from all the different countries that are impacted by the terrorist threats that emanate from Afghanistan. But the fact remains that when Afghanistan itself does not accept the fact that these terror outfits are present within the territory, how can you move forward?
Well, I think it is better that they face the reality sooner than later. And there are ways and means, there are incentives and disincentives, which I think all these four countries can apply. And these incentives and disincentives essentially could be in the economic field, in the political field, of course, in the field of human rights violations, and even in the military field, as I said. So that needs to be done. Then I think what all these countries, particularly Pakistan, needs to do is that in addition to establishing contact with their foreign office and their extension, whether it is in Doha or elsewhere, I think we need to meet the senior most religious leaders of Afghanistan to tell them how important it is that they cooperate with Pakistan and the rest of the countries and address their concerns. To say, that the Doha Agreement was not signed with Pakistan, but with probably the United States, and but if there are threats emanating from Afghanistan to other countries, which the Doha Agreement very clearly says that Afghanistan is responsible to ensure that its territory is not used against its neighbors or any other countries, and you therefore immediately and promptly you saw the United States reinforcing what Pakistan has been saying. But this is, I think,
Raza Saab, how important is the reaction from the US State Department that reiterates Pakistan's stance as well?
Well, I think it is very important because I think amongst all these countries, I think China and US are, I think, very important for the future of Afghanistan, and China has been speaking for them at all international forums like Pakistan. And if there are any threats to the security of China or to the joint security of Pakistan and China, like CPEC and other places, and obviously I think China will be compelled to change its stance. And I think the US and the West stance is going to even harden because of that. And that is going to impact, I think, the people of Afghanistan. And I think the government of Afghanistan needs to realize this. Also, I think all four powers should not rule out the hypothesis that it could be raw, who is also undertaking terrorist organizations and activities with the help of BLA and BLP and others, sometimes even in the garb of TTP. So I think all these four countries should be mindful of this and ensure that India does not do that. Of course, it was again very important that in the recent past, the foreign minister visited Iran and then the army chief visited Iran. And both these visits were very successful as they related, to enhancing the mutual national security of both countries. And I would say, as far as the fencing between the borders of Afghanistan, of Iran and Pakistan is concerned, that needs to be jointly done and it needs to be jointly monitored. It is doable. And I think if the cost is also shared, that will be, I think, something very, very positive, not only for the security of the two countries, but generally for the relations of both these countries. In addition to that,
Raza Sahab, there's another angle that I wanted to point out. We look at the infiltration of terrorists from our western border. We also see the reaction from Zabiullah Mujahid and his reactions that are not quite optimistic or positive as far as the security outlook of the region is concerned. Do you feel, A, that Afghanistan is unwilling to stop the infiltration of these terror outfits from its western border? B, I'd also like to understand where the funding comes from for these terror outfits.
Well, I think from whatever is happening inside Pakistan, unfortunately, one does not see much of the will, or the seriousness to understand the repercussion of whatever is happening in Pakistan, because this is hurting the people of Pakistan, innocent people in Pakistan. And I think there is a limit to the endurance of the people of Pakistan. And I think the earlier these terrorist sanctuaries close to Pakistan borders in Afghanistan are uprooted by the Afghan government and their security forces as soon as possible, the better it would be. Alternatively, I think there could be combined operations. Afghanistan should agree that Pakistan, and if it fits the issue of their capacity, they can have joint operations, to uproot all these sanctuaries. They could apply, the hammer and anvil strategy and, finish all these sanctuaries. Otherwise, I think the international actors, they may be actually compelled to undertake such operations on their own, and they have done this in the past. And I think once or twice, even Pakistan was compelled to take, unilateral actions against some very dangerous elements which were sitting close to our borders in Afghanistan, and they were undertaking operations. So all these options, I think, are available to all these four countries. And I think the government of Afghanistan needs to understand that these are very, very serious issues. And rhetoric alone is not going to be the answer. They actually have to prove, that they are serious in taking actions against all these terrorist groups. At the same time, I think Pakistan needs to seriously now concern the return of, consider the return of Afghan refugees, which I think is now warranted because the Afghan government is saying that there is now peace in Afghanistan. And if there is peace and security, then I think they should take their refugees back, because many of these refugees, they enter Pakistan in the garb of the refugees. Some enter in the garb of, traders. So we have to actually increase our vigilance and the border control measures, not only at Torkham, Chaman, Ghulam Khan Kili, but all places. And of course, the national action plans and the provincial action plans, in particular, they need to be funded properly. And I think if there is any lack of training, then I think that needs to be made up as soon as possible. And of course, it was pointed out that the terrorists have total liberty of action in Afghanistan, and they've acquired latest weapons like M16s, night vision goggles, and communication devices, and even foreign uniforms. So I think all this is not only a concern of Pakistan, but the entire region, and I think the Afghan government needs to realize this.
All right, you haven't answered the question on who, in your point of view, is funding all of these terror outfits, because nothing can happen without adequate funding, whether it be the food, the water, the supply, the equipment. It all comes through some source, and that has to be through liquid money. Where is that money coming from?
Well, absolutely. I think when it comes to the funding, then in Afghanistan, I think one source of funding is very clear. It was there in the past. They say that is no more there. But there used to be some drug money, then there used to be some extortion money over there. Then there are, some religious contributions. And, the biggest contributor, in my view, for all this is India. Their past actions have proven this. And also, when we are talking of funding, they have been funding these terrorists and training them, not only in Afghanistan, but in Dubai and other places. And they've been funding them inside Pakistan. There are their facilitators and there are sympathizers and supporters, unfortunately, in Pakistan. As I said earlier, I think it is the job of now the provincial governments in particular, their counter-terrorism departments in particular, to find out these people and to take stern action against them as per Pakistani laws. All the intelligence agencies, their cooperation, coordinations could be improved further, so that all these people, they are taken to task. But again, the most important thing is, as I've been saying earlier, it is not alone the responsibility of the LEAs, counter-terrorism, also the responsibility of the people of Pakistan. It is the responsibility of the media, religious leaders, political leaders, across the political divide. It is the responsibility of social media and of the civil society. All of them, I think they need to work hand in glove with the security forces in the defensive measures of counter-terrorism. And unless that is done, I think these counter-terrorism is not going to be as successful as it is. Finally, I'd like to say on this question, is that when it comes, to the capacity or capability of our security forces, then given a political decision, I think whatever sanctuaries are there across the border, I think it's a matter, it can be, finished, they can be eliminated, I think probably in a day or two. But then that is also going to have repercussions. And the Afghan government needs to understand that, like in the past, when it was done, I think Pakistan did not want to do it. But if it is compelled to do it in the interest of national security and because the people desire that they should be protected, then I think Pakistan will be compelled to do that as well. And again, that also needs to be understood by them.
Raza Sahab, you talk of Pakistan's reaction. Let's talk about the Pakistan Armed Forces. Now, after the 12 soldiers embraced martyrdom in two attacks in Balochistan, the reaction came from the Pakistan Army, and they did say that they will take action against and they will take an effective response rather against such elements. What could, or in your point of view, what should be the action of our armed forces after this inaction from our western neighbor of Afghanistan, or if this inaction continues?
Well, Pakistan armed forces are continuing their intelligence-based operations against all terrorists, including the TTP and all others. Some of these operations, will bear fruit after maybe sometimes after a few days, and some of them are classified, and it cannot be made public to the media. I also made a mention, at the beginning, how Pakistan and the regional countries could do it, or how, when it comes to, the trans-border counter-terrorism operations against foreign terrorists. I also mentioned that if Pakistan is compelled, then, instead of all the defensive measures that we have to undertake, it can do it across the border, and it has the capability, the range, the know-how and the intelligence to undertake, but this should be done as a last resort.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the security outlook of Pakistan in the wake of all these terror attacks that have been happening, and of course the response that has come from the government as well as from our armed forces as to how to move forward in case of an action from our western border or neighborhood country of Afghanistan. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns the grain deal. The Black Sea grain deal that was signed between Ukraine and Russia last year, with Turkey acting as guarantor, has now either, you can call it, suspended or ended, at least from the Russian side. A lot of speculations, a lot of question marks emanate. More in the following report.
Russia has halted its participation in a wartime agreement to allow grain exports from Ukraine through Black Sea. The agreement, known as the Black Sea Grain Initiative, was struck a year ago, brokered by United Nations and Turkey. The deal has been extended 3 times. Most recently, in May, the latest extension has expired. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed his disappointment and raised alarm that millions of people facing hunger, as well as consumers confronting a cost of living crisis, would pay a price. Russia has repeatedly complained about the agreement, which it calls one-sided in Ukraine's favor. Moscow has said that Western sanctions have restricted the sale of Russia's agricultural products, and it has sought guarantees that free up those exports. Back in April, Russia's foreign ministry also listed other demands to renew the grain deal, such as reconnect state-owned Russian Agricultural Bank to international SWIFT messaging service, lift restrictions on maritime insurance, and sanctions against fertilizer companies. Russia's announcement came hours after deadly attack on Kerch State Bridge, linking Crimea to mainland Russia. The landmark Ukraine deal has helped stabilize global food prices and alleviate shortages of food in parts of Africa and Middle East, and its suspension could be a potential blow to global food supplies.
Bernhard Zimniok, who's a member of the European Parliament and belongs to the party Alternative für Deutschland, joins us online. Mr. Zimniok, thank you very much to have joined us. Mr. Zimniok, I'd like to understand, why is the Black Sea grain deal so important? And in the wake of the Russian side suspending this deal, what is the impact that is going to be happening on the food security in the region and across the world?
Well, I think thank you first of all for this conversation. We in the Western world, we see the situation quite dramatic, more dramatic than it is for the rest of the world. Here we are in Europe. In Europe, we are playing the card, Africa will starve to death. This will happen, and ugly Russians. Well, I'm not pro-Russian, I'm not pro-Ukraine. I'm German. And I try to figure out what are the facts. And the fact is that we are talking about 33 million of grain in the last year. But in the meantime, Ukraine already, let's say, prepared a different route. We are Eastern Europe, we are Bulgaria, Hungary, and so on, besides some economic problems in the respective countries. But so we had, at least we are speaking about 30% now left, which has to be transported through the Black Sea. This 30% now. So this is a different figure as far as I understood all the information I gathered. So and to see the rest of the world, most affected is China, 8 million. Spain is affected 6 million. Turkey, 3 million, blah, blah, blah. So Tunisia is maybe 500,000 tons. So we see the situation is a little bit different. Africa will not starve to death, as the Europeans are talking everywhere. This is shame and whatever. Coming back to the facts, this is the thing. Most affected is China. And to take this in your mind, China is not hostile, is a kind of a friend to Russia. Let's say not friend, maybe but they're acting not unfriendly. So I don't think that Russia will make the Chinese partners angry. So they will return to the table as they did 3 times before. So this is the fact for me personally at the moment. Another view is the future exchange. According to this information yesterday, they raised, of course, this is a natural development, but immediately calmed down. So the price is now similar like last week. This is also a signal for me that nobody sees this. We are not talking, we are eating not the soup as hot as we are cooked. So this is now the situation.
Mr. Zimniok, I'd like to understand, when this grain deal was signed with Turkey as guarantor last year, there were certain objectives from both the sides, from the Ukrainian side as well as from the Russian side. The Russian side says that its interests are not being taken care of, and that is the reason why it is backing out of this deal. In your point of view, what was the main objective of this deal when it was signed last year, and did it attain its objectives?
Well, Turkey, for example, was one of this mediator. Turkey is the third one in the row. They import 3 million tons. So they get some profit, first of all. The second one is Russia also asks for benefits. So this is not only a one-sided contract where Ukraine gets a lot of money. Even the Russians ask for some benefits. Benefits mean the sanction is not against this product. The sanction is against some person, some entities, some enterprises and whatever. And they ask to, let's say, to ease the sanction or remove the sanction on this part, especially for the bank, the Agrar Bank, which is mainly affected because they have no access to the SWIFT. So this means if they get this back and they ease it, and not the proposals of, let's say, where they say, okay, not the Agrar Bank, use it, found a different bank. This costs time, and the Russians don't accept. I wouldn't accept too. So this is a kind where the Turkish, where Erdogan is coming up and say, okay, let's negotiate. And I'm sure that in a couple of days we ease the situation as it was before. Good signal is, as I mentioned, the future exchange. That's it.
All right, Mrs. Zimniok, I understand you were telling me that in the past also Russia had backed out from this deal and then had rejoined. I'd like to refer to the dates as October 31 and March this year when it had backed out, and then of course it later rejoined. And you seem optimistic by how things are moving forward that Russia will also come back this time to this deal. But till the time it does not come to this deal, how much in your point of view is the this grain deal going to affect the refugees and the conflict zones that are also being supplied through this grain deal?
Yeah, I think, of course, we are playing in Europe this card if they do not get in Africa and Asia the food. So they are forced to move forward, to come to Europe, and migration will happen, blah, blah, blah. I think it's a story, because if you see the poor figures where the grain is going, why should somebody from Mali move from Mali to Europe because of the blocking of this route? This is stories. We from the AFD, we are independent. We are not talking about we are as a party. We see how the facts are on the ground, and we try to sort out. And we try to find solutions, like they will come back to the table. I personally, you can see it in all my videos, I suggested, come down to the table, not shoot, come down, because nobody has a benefit out of it. Nobody, no country.
That is true. Now, but Mr. Zimniok, I'd like to understand, can this Black Sea grain deal continue to operate without Russian assistance? Do you feel that Ukraine can export more grain through the European Union?
Well, they're doing already the most out of it, and they, as I mentioned, they export now via the land route. We are the Eastern Europe, and these countries are facing now economic problem because of the lack of transportation, because this means we have a lot of trucks. We need a lot of trucks and trains and whatever. So for the mid-run, I don't think there's any effect for us or for anybody else, frankly spoken. You see the figures, and I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic that they will come back to the table very, very soon. Most of the Chinese, they will also make a little bit, let's say, push them forward. I'm sure. I would do so.
All right. But Mr. Zimniok, the fact remains, if I would like to quote Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, he on Monday, hours before the Black Sea grain deal was suspended by Russia, said that Russia will return to the deal immediately if its demands about its exports were met with. What are these demands?
Sorry, now the connection was a little bit bad. So what I understood was on Monday, and then it disappeared. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I'll repeat my question, Mr. Zimniok. I was saying that hours before this grain deal was suspended by Russia, Mr. Peskov, who's the Kremlin spokesperson, said that they will return immediately to this deal if their demands regarding their exports were met with. What are these demands exactly?
These demands, you think the Russian demands, it's quite simple, as I mentioned. Because this most important agrar bank, where they have the SWIFT connection outside, so this is suspended, or some other enterprises and some persons are banned. So they are they're banned with sanctions. So this is a question. Putin want to get back this and want to lift this, and this is obvious because if they have no access with this agrar bank. And the recommendation from Europe is, can you bank? Yeah, found bank. It's impossible. You know, it is this last month be connected to the outside world. This is the problem. Despite them, I am not a friend of any sanction because it never works. It never works in North Korea. It never works in Iran or elsewhere, and it doesn't work in Russia too. We, the Germans and the Europeans, are the big losers. Yeah, we hurt ourselves. We killed ourselves, our economy. That's the problem.
Mr. Zimniok, let's talk a little bit about this conflict between Russia and Ukraine that has been going on for quite a number of months now. What, in your point of view, in the European Parliament's point of view, because you're a member of this Parliament and I'm sure this topic is discussed very regularly, what are the options, what are the optics of any kind of negotiated process that could move along between the two parties in order for this conflict to come to an end?
Well, this is, I was thinking like you are talking. And I asked this in our committee during a hearing of one of the high-ranking NATO members, NATO staffs, and I asked, Putin now showed a slight signal to come back to the negotiation table, yeah, to come back and talk so we can ease it, we can save life. And do you grab these possibilities? The answer was very clear. The decision will not made on the table, not made by diplomats. It will made in the theater of war. So this is very clear. So for me, this is a war. They never here from the Western side, they are not intended to stop it till they win. And to win, it's impossible because it's a power with weapons. Incredible amount of weapons, of atomic weapons. So how to defeat them? That's impossible. And when we defeat Putin, what's happened after this? You know, nobody has control about the country. This is a country which is fixed on maybe one or few persons. If we distribute it, say so, in 5 parts or whatever, impossible to control, impossible to talk, impossible to whatever. So for me, we from the Western side, we are doing a lot of mistakes, and I blame my colleagues too. They shout on me as Putin boy, but I'm not, let's say, not in behalf of Putin or anybody else. I'm I'm working in behalf of my country and for the European nations, you see.
But that is true, Mr. Zimniok, but the fact remains that any long drawn out war between two factions that is directly impacting the European Union and other countries in the region as well is going to have a huge impact on food security, on stability in the whole region. And I hope that better sense prevails over the parties that are concerned, so that some kind of negotiated process moves forward. And I'm sure the European Parliament will do its needful, will do its level best so that that could happen. This said, I would like to quote the International Rescue Committee that calls this grain deal, I'm coming back to this deal, as a lifeline for 79 countries and 349 million people on the front line of food insecurity. If, and this is just an if, quote unquote, this deal is not restored in the next days or weeks, what are the prospects of a hunger crisis? Are there any alternative mechanisms that could be provided?
Well, I don't see a hunger crisis. It's a dramatic rise of the prices. This maybe creates big problems to some countries, especially in Africa, but not the lack of let's say, of the grain. It is more the prices, which makes it impossible to buy it, you know. This is the problem. This is the main concern. But I don't think, and I'm still optimistic, that many countries like China and Turkey will Russia push forward. And this is a game. It's a game, you know. They are gambling now, and I think in a couple of days we will lift this. I'm very optimistic. In the past, it happens now, I think 3 times. So why not the 4th time?
Mr. Bernhard, Zimniok, thank you so very much to have joined us all the way from the EU and to have discussed with us this this Black Sea grain deal that was signed between Russia and Ukraine last year, with Turkey acting as guarantor. That, of course, has been unilaterally suspended by Russia, citing concerns about its demands not being met with. Mr. Zimniok remains optimistic. So do we. Let's hope that some kind of solution comes to that, and also to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Let's come to our last story, and that concerns the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We talk about it and we continue to highlight it because the fact remains that this is an issue that needs to be highlighted as much as possible with all that is happening in the region. Recently, a senior official from the University of Kashmir is among 3 employees, ladies and gentlemen, who have been terminated. That is, their job ended by the Jammu and Kashmir administration by invoking a controversial law which activists say is being used arbitrarily to crack down on free speech. Now, Fahim Aslam was appointed as a public relations officer at the University of Kashmir way back in 2008. He was terminated by the administration of Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha under Article 311. This is the controversial article, Article 311 of the Constitution of India. This article has been described as an instrument of executive impunity, and activists claim that this legislation is being used by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, which runs in the Union Territory directly, to undermine the fundamental rights of free speech in the Indian held valley. 2 similar such orders were also issued on Sunday to terminate Arshad Ahmed Thokar, a constable in the Jammu and Kashmir police who hails from Shopaiya, and Murawat Hussain Mir, a native of Pulwama district who worked as Wasil Baki Nafis in the Jammu and Kashmir Revenue Department. All of these 3 jobs have been terminated under this controversial Article 311 Clause 2, which removes the critical safeguard of inquiry for all employees who are dismissed by the administration without any notice or chance of representation. But you know, does this amaze us? Does this surprise us? No, because what has been going on since decades, especially since Narendra Modi's government coming to power, is quite evident. Through different forms, through different tactics, they continue to wreak havoc on the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We hope for a solution. We hope for the people of that region to have their right to self-determination, and Pakistan, as it has in the past, will continue to help them politically, morally and diplomatically. Let's hope for good days to come for the people. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.